Now, earlier today, you mentioned something that got my attention. I'm sure you could do like 2 or 3 days on it, but what do you mean by you come from a privileged background?
When I say I come from a privileged background, I mean when I was born, I had a home to stay. I had a father who was earning. I had a mother who was educated. She was a graduate. I had grandparents from my father's side, where my grandmother was a housewife and my grandfather was a school teacher. I had grandparents from my mother's side, where my grandfather was a retired professor from a college as a class one government officer, and a grandmother who came from a very affluent family. I believe I was privileged because when I was born, there was not one, two, three, but so many people waiting for me to be born. There were so many people showering love on me. And I think that is what I call privileged. There were so many people protecting me. There was this woman who was employed simply to give me a massage. When she used to give me a massage when I was a baby, immediately after I was born, this woman was supposed to give me a bath and give me a massage. When this woman was giving me a massage, my maternal uncle, my mother's brother, would stand right there looking at that woman, scaring her to shit. That is my niece. Don't make her cry. He wouldn't let her massage properly because I was a baby and I was a very crying baby. Every time I would cry, he would look at her angrily. What are you doing to my niece? Why is she crying? And the woman would say, she's a baby. She's going to cry if I'm going to give her a massage or a bath. Do it properly. Don't press too much. That is what I would call privileged.
And you don't know a lot of other people that fall in that category?
I know a lot of people who fall in that category, but I know a lot of people who, in spite of being in this category, they don't feel like they are privileged. I meet so many people who had probably more than what I have, but for some reason it was never enough for them. The problem was not that they did not have enough, the problem was they did not feel anything was enough for them. Aiming for higher goals is different, but not being satisfied is an entirely different thing altogether. So, yes, I do know a lot of people who are privileged, but they don't realize that they are privileged until sometimes it's too late.
How do you, I guess, how do you communicate with people that are not appreciative, that are in your space for some reason or another? Maybe they work with you, they live with you, or they get in contact with you. How do you manage that disparity in attitudes?
In the initial times, I simply listen to them. If there are people who are not appreciative about your work, in spite of the fact that from within they like you, but there is something that is stopping them from actually appreciating you. In this scenario, the problem lies with them. The problem is not with us. The major problems in our life is that we make other people's problems our problems. And that is where all the problems begin. I'm doing a good job in my own stride, but there is some other person who is not appreciating me for what I am doing. My question at that point is not for that person. My question is for me. Am I doing this thing to get that person's approval? And if I'm doing this thing to get that person's approval, why do I need that person's approval? This is my life. And the only person's approval that I need is mine. It is okay if somebody else doesn't forgive me. What is important is I forgive myself. It doesn't matter if somebody else is is not happy with what I'm doing. What is important is that I am happy with what I'm doing. And the moment you're happy with yourself, the people who don't appreciate you, they gradually come to appreciate you. Because if there is one thing that people don't like, it is being not acknowledged. The moment you stop acknowledging other people's disapproval, their disapproval converts into approval because they are insignificant. Always remember, The opposite of love is never hate. Opposite of love is indifference. Hate is a stronger feeling. Love is the feeling that gives you a lot, and hate is the feeling that takes away a lot from you. Loving someone is easy, hating someone is not. Because when you hate someone, you are giving too much of your energy to that person. Indifference, on other hand, well, that is something that will kill the other person, not you. So there is something called as not acknowledging indifference. If there is something that someone is doing and it is bothering you, believe me, the best way is to not acknowledge it. Don't dignify it with an acknowledgement at all. Because ultimately, when you cry during those lonely nights, the approval of world is not going to matter. The only thing that's going to matter is your approval for yourself.
Now, it seems that you were born this way. That's I mean, as I'm listening to you, your origins and what have you. For me, I started to think like what you are describing when I was 50. So the whole first 50 years of my life, I spent, depending on what I got from the outside stimuli, that's how I responded. Someone would tell me that you talk too much. The following day, I'd be quieter than usual. Someone would say you were just too quiet. The next day, I would talk a lot more than usual. So it's interesting for me. What's most interesting is if you began that way, how does the concept of personal growth? I mean, it seems like you've done so much from the beginning. How do you know when you're growing personally? Talk a little bit about what personal growth means to you, and experientially, how do you experience it?
Personal growth. There is this one more thing that I always encounter with when I speak to people, especially my colleagues, or a lot of times the next generation, or even a people who are a few years older than me. Look at me. People who were my classmates, they are doing this, they are doing that, they are earning this money, they are have a house over here, they have a property there, and I just have this. Okay. Second problem. He got it when he was 25. I got it when I'm 35. It is 10 years late. My question to these people is, who decided that this is the right age to start earning money, and this is the right age to have a house of your own, and this is the right age to actually make property? Everybody has a different career clock. Let's take a small example. If you are a software engineer, you complete your undergrads at 21, at the max 22. After undergrads, if you want to go for grads, you spend another 2 or 3 years. So by 25, you are a master in the field that you have chosen, according to the certificates of acclaimed universities. Now look at the doctors. The doctor is not even recognized as a doctor until the doctor is 27 or a 28-year-old. When you have already become a master, it is 2 years after that that a doctor becomes an intern. So it is going to take another 5 years for that intern to become a doctor. So a doctor becomes a doctor at 31, and an engineer becomes a master engineer at 25. Is it fair to compare both of them and their pay scales and their property and their career growth?
I
It's
would say no.
it's absolutely not possible because their career clocks have started at different times. And this is where we all mess up. Now, this was a very clear example of an engineer and a doctor. This is exactly what happens from person to person. You can think that you want to be an engineer, but maybe midway after you turn 30, you realize that no, maybe economics is more my thing. So, what? You should not go for economics? At my home, my father was a laughing stock for everyone not just for us, but for everyone. And why was he laughing stock? I'll tell you. To be very honest, I wouldn't say he was a laughing stock because deep down, everybody envied him and everybody admired him a lot. He was a class one officer, and he wanted to become a lawyer, but for some reason he became engineer and then he could not pursue law. And after he became an engineer, he could not pursue law while he was in service. He turned 50 years old when he decided that, okay, if I can't do law, I'm going to do MBA. He took admission for MBA. But because he was a government officer, every now and then he was traveling. There were too many things happening. One time there were 750 people who had come to kill him. The other time there were 1,000 people who had tried to bury him alive. So these are the scenario circumstances in which he was living, and he was also studying for MBA. A 52-year-old man studying for MBA. Of course, it was a 2 years course. He took 5 years to complete it. But mind you, he completed his MBA course. And how did he do that? Well, the first year was going on, he would fail, and then he would be upset. Then his father would call him, his 80-year-old father, and his
Mhm.
80-year-old father would ask a 52-year-old son, what is the result? My father would be in a very low voice on the phone, I failed, Papa, I failed. And my grandfather from there would say, why did you take admission? Why are you wasting money? If you did not want to study, no, there was this problem. Don't give me arguments and don't give me excuses. If you did not want to study, why did you take the admission? Why are you wasting the money? And then my father would keep the phone. People would ask, how can your father talk to you like that? And my father would say, hey, I'm 52 years old and I still have a father to scold me and ask me answers for things I'm not getting right. And when I heard that, I realized that, wow, it's wonderful to have someone you are answerable to. But yeah, my father completed it after 5 years. After he completed his MBA, some rules changed and he could pursue law not in 3 years, but in 5 years. He completed law in 5 years, and today, after retirement, he also completed his LLM. So now he's engineer. Then he became a MBA, and now he is working as a lawyer. He started working as a lawyer at 60. Can we
Weren't you a lawyer at one time?
Yes, that's what my father said. If you can become a lawyer, anybody can become a lawyer. And that is how he took it. Oh, yes, I'm not kidding.
No,
That
you
is how.
didn't.
No, he did. He did. I was in fourth year law. I came home. My results came in. Then my father said, you don't study and still you pass. If you can pass without studying, I can study and I will get good marks. And that is how my father took up admission for law. He completed his law. He wanted me to complete LLM. I said, I don't want to study anymore. He said, okay, then I will study. So whenever he asked me and my sister to study something and we refused, he decided to do it himself because we were not doing it. My sister was from commerce background. She did BBA. My father said, do MBA. She said, no, I don't want to study anymore. Okay, then I'll do MBA. My father said to me, do LLM. I said, no, I don't want to do LLM. So he said, okay, then I will do LLM. And now he's 62 and he's all set to, he's 61 now, and he's all preparing for PhD now. Point is that career clocks are going to be different. Personal growth for everyone is going to be different.
Mm.
For my father, personal growth was that even at 60, he wants to believe in himself that, yes, I still have it in me to do something. I have not finished everything, I have not given up on things. For someone who is pursuing his medicals, for that person cannot start thinking about money at 25. It's irrational. Personal growth is all about where you want to see yourself and whether or not you are reaching that goal in time. That is how you will measure your personal growth. Never ever measure your personal growth depending on what people around you are doing. I had made that mistake. I had never wanted to do a lot of things, but I simply did them because I wanted to show people around me that I do them better than you. And after doing that, I would wonder, why the hell did I do this? I never wanted to do this. And then people said, oh no, you failed, you quit. I said, I did not quit. I never wanted to do it in first place. I did it only to show you that I can do it. And that was the time I realized that I should stop doing this. I need to stop doing things just out of spite to tell people that I can do it. No, my personal growth completely depends on the goals I have set for myself and how I am reaching there. Whether or not I'm one step closer to my goals every morning I wake up. If that is happening, personal growth is going in right direction. And if there are too many diversions you are taking, then that's not happening. I am somebody who has taken those diversions. That's why I can tell you personal growth is all about the goals you have set for yourself and how you are reaching them. Don't let other idiots brainwash you into believing for some time that these are the times when you have to earn money. These are the
Mm-hmm.
times when you should have fun.
Mm-hmm.
I had people in my life who would tell me that you should get married during your 20s because sex life is best during your 20s. And I am asking them, seriously, can that be a reason to get married? Don't you have a better reason to get married? Then I had someone, no, you can have fun in your 20s. And then I think about my own life. I never had fun in 20s. In 20s, I was working like a 40-year-old person. And in my 30s, I'm behaving like a teenager. But I think it is perfectly fine because the goals that I had set for myself, I'm reaching them. Every morning I'm waking up, I'm closer to my goals. And that is my personal growth. And who decides how you are supposed to behave at 20 or at 30 or at 40? I mean, I recently wrote a poetry that just because I'm 30 doesn't mean I'm not a child. I can
Mm-hmm.
be, I mean, it's not necessarily that you are young and stupid, old and wise. I was young and stupid, I'm old and stupid today. But it's fine because I'm learning new things every day and I'm going in the direction that I want to, something that makes me feel happy, not just in terms of money wherein I can buy good things, but in the sense that when I wake up, I don't wake up thinking, oh shit, now I have to do this. I wake up thinking, wow, I have to do this now.
Well, now, in terms of money, you just mentioned money. This is my take on money. Now, I've read a book entitled The Science of Getting Rich, but the book was about so much more than getting rich. And one of the things that he says is that and I believe it. Before I even said, I'm telling you, I believe it. Whether you do or not, I believe it. It's totally impossible to live your best life unless you're rich. And the point that he goes on to make is that in order to live your best life, you have to use things. Like if you want to be a marksman, you got to have a gun, you got to have a bow and arrow, something like that. If you want to be a speaker, you have to have computers, you have to have equipment. Whatever it is that you want to do in life, you want to build your confidence some kind of way, you need books to read. You need all these different resources. And you're limited by the amount of resources that you can have control over by the amount of money that you have. So no matter how well you're living or how well you're not living, without being rich, there's more that you can do. And living in the country that I live in, they make it possible for you to achieve wealth simply by bringing to the table what your special gift is. You know, there's only one Victor, there's only one Gayatri, right? And whatever it is that you do, whatever it is that I bring, it's individual. And if you can
Absolutely.
stay committed to whatever it is you love, then you'll probably do okay. The difficulty is that fear gets in the way of people doing what they love. Well, the thing about you as you're talking and as you're sharing, you know, it doesn't even make any difference to you how anybody feels about what you're saying because you're being you. But so many other people, they they're not authentic. They're not genuine in their communication because they wonder about the disapproval or the fear, what have you. And up until I was 50, I was like that. Right now, I'm not like that anymore. But you, y'all three, you just assaulted me when you gave that speech. I was just minding my own business, watching a Toastmaster meeting, and the entity called the Yatri came off the screen, grabbed me by the throat, and said, "Hey, you, I'm over here. Yes, here I am." I mean, that's how it was. I mean, that's how it felt. And so I had to reach out to you. didn't know what was going to happen, but I know I had to do it, and I'm glad I did. And we're going to do some other things now. We've spent a few minutes today, and I've asked you a couple of questions, and we're going to bring it to an end here shortly. But there's so much more. In fact, I've asked you one question really, but all these, you know, so
Oh,
this is what I wrote down before I even started
wow.
talking to you, you know, and the good thing is that you express yourself freely, and you're not a boring person at all. But
Thank you.
the final thing, um, because you were talking about your father, there's the concept. And next time we meet, and I like meeting this way because I get to see you, and the way that you look is part of your appeal. And there's this concept called power distance index,
Okay.
and it's peculiar from one country or one culture to the other.
Yes.
The difference between a person who's in a position of power and a person who is not in a position of power, in some countries, that's huge. Like in the Asian countries, there's a lot of respect between the person and their elder.
Yes.
They speak to them, they mitigate their speech when they're talking to them, and they respect them and they have value for them. In the United States, not so much. in, in the United States, you could be the president of the United States. The average Joe Blow on the street figure he can walk up to you and tell you anything that he wants to tell you.
Yes.
So taking that into consideration, what is it like? I mean, what is there a power distance index in India? Like, do people your age revere the older people? Do the person in authority automatically gets respect because they're in authority? That'll be the last thing that you tell me about. Tell me how you personally feel about that.
What you pointed out, Victor, is absolutely right. Over back home here in India, yes, if somebody is elder than you, even if that person is talking completely utter nonsense,
Rubbish.
maybe that person is talking rubbish, but you sit there quietly, you listen to them, let them complete what they want to say, and you do not back answer. If that person is elder to you, that power distance index has slowly come down. If that person is like really elderly person, then you maintain that. But if that age gap is something, let's say 10 or 15 years, then you can at least go ahead and tell them that no, what you're saying is wrong. You can put forth your point of view. But today I cannot think about giving a back answer to my 70-year-old grandfather or an 80-year-old grandmother. I cannot. As far as it comes to revering the people in the position of authority, yes. Now, the thing is that in India, we never had a feudal system. Before the British colonized us, we had monarchy in India as well. There were a few invasions from Islamic countries as well. But before that, in the Vedic society, the king was the revered one, his ministers were the revered one. But traditionally in India, knowledge is the most revered one. I mean, forget about age. If there is a PhD holder talking to an older person, then that older person will listen to that PhD. Because in India, beyond age, if there is something that is valued, it is knowledge. To give you a very easy example, I'll tell you a little belief back home in India. We follow Hinduism, we have multiple gods. We believe in one God, one supreme power, but we believe that that one supreme power manifests in various forms. So we have one goddess of knowledge, Saraswati, and we have one goddess of wealth and prosperity, that is Lakshmi. Here back home, it is a standing joke that Lakshmi and Saraswati cannot live together. That is, wealth and knowledge cannot live together. And traditionally, it has been observed in India that if somebody is really very intelligent, that person is engrossed in doing so many things that money is the least of their concerns. And then there are people who are with lot of money, and they said, why do we need knowledge? We don't need knowledge, we have money. So in India, what people usually try to do is to make sure that there is peace between Lakshmi and Saraswati, both of them, because you need both of them in your life. I'll give you a small example. Mahatma Gandhi, I'm sure that name is familiar across the globe. Mahatma Gandhi was in South Africa. He waged a big war against the British. British was so sick of him that they decided that this man should not stay in Africa anymore. So they decided to deport him. That is how Gandhi was sent to London once again. But during that journey, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who was one of the freedom fighters of India, he sent a message to Mahatma Gandhi that, well, whatever you did in South Africa is good enough, but we really need you back home in India as well, because Indians are also facing similar problems like you saw in South Africa. So Mahatma Gandhi went to London, and from there he came to India. When he came to India, now he was also a barrister. He was a good practicing barrister in London and then in South Africa. When he arrived in India, he was invited to a party, and there Gopal Krishna Gokhale went to meet him. And Gandhi, and he asked Mahatma Gandhi that, okay, so you did that in South Africa. What are your plans for India? Then Mahatma Gandhi said, well, I will first decide where I want to practice. I'll set my practice. I'll start earning money so that my family is well fed. And then I will let you know. And then Gopal Krishna Gokhale said, we have people to earn money. We don't need you to earn money. We need you to do what you do the best. So you just focus on doing what you do the best. As far as money is concerned, there are people who earn money, they will give you money. And that was a very profound statement. In my opinion, that was the most profound statement, because not everybody in our society is meant to earn money. Some people are meant to do bigger jobs than simply earning money. In India, the villages had one system. Every village had one teacher. Every village had one teacher who used to teach each and every student in that village. And that teacher would not ask for a single penny as his fees.
But that
Each and
teacher also didn't wasn't lacking for anything either, were they?
No, because all these students, each of these students had a family who had some business, or they were farmers. So the teacher was, I mean, everything that you could buy with money, teacher would get it just like that. If teacher is teaching teaching a student whose father is a blacksmith, he would send everything necessary for the home. If the student's father is a farmer, the father would send yearly grains to his home. So that is what a teacher's life was. So while imparting knowledge, the teacher did not have to think, when will my fees come? Will it come or not? Will they drop out on paying me? No, teacher was simply focused on teaching. So he was worshipping the goddess of knowledge. So he was not
Mm.
really worried about what to do. He was getting clothes, he was getting everything, because it was abundance, because you were not valuing everything in money. There are some people in this society who are not meant to earn money the regular way. They are
That's
simply,
th- that's
yes,
we'll end this for now. That's an interesting point of view, and we'll pick up with that next time we meet, which could be a week from tonight. But I'll still be chatting with you like I've been chatting with you
yes.
because that's fun.
It is, it is, it is.
I mean, it's fun,
These are
and
intriguing conversations.
then I'm gonna send you this video after I get done with it, so you can see yourself and see if you're looking like you want to look. I don't know if you are as big an egomaniac as I am, because I look at myself all the time. I got videos all over YouTube, and I look at them, because
No, I'm
so
I'm okay with it. I mean, if you think this is good enough, I don't mind. I mean, I'm not really a kind of person who needs to apply makeup compulsorily or something. I'm comfortable with
that's
the way
right.
I am.
You
Okay.
don't you look fine, but I think it would be helpful to you just to see
I
yourself.
it will. I
So
can
anyway,
study.
give my best to your folks,
Yes,
and
I will.
tell them that your mom particularly, tell her I'm glad that she didn't drown you, because she could have. when, when when you were born, she she, she could have drowned you. Go, oh no, 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 let's get rid of this. She could have done it. So So tell her I'm glad she
Tell her that.
tell her I'm glad, and I hope she laughs too. You tell her that I'm glad
Yes.
that she didn't drown you because you're a okay with me. But
Yes.
anyway, thanks again for taking some of your time this evening, and
No, it was
good.
wonderful. I loved this conversation. And the best
Me
part
too.
is you have read so much that your questions are not questions. Your questions are basically a point of view.
Yeah.
There is substance that you are sharing and just sharing my understanding of what you just said.
But you know what your answers are? They're you.
Yeah.
You. They're you. And that's what I wanted.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
until next time, I like to say you have yourself a good time, and I'll get to see you in the next couple of days.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye now.
Bye. Have a great day.